My parents made my 9-year-old daughter eat Thanksgiving dinner alone in the garage. Let that sink in for a second. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. Thanksgiving. The one holiday that's supposed to be about family, warmth, gratitude. A table full of food, laughter, stories. And my daughter, sitting alone in the cold next to a stack of cardboard boxes and an old lawnmower. Now let me ask you something. If someone humiliated your child like that, what would you do? Would you yell? Would you flip the table? Would you pack your bags and leave right then and there? Most people think they know what they'd do in that moment. I thought I knew too. But when it actually happened, I didn't scream. I didn't argue. I didn't cause a scene. I just stepped outside and made one phone call. And the next morning, when my father opened his phone, the entire house went silent. But to understand why that moment mattered, you need to see how the night started. Because a few hours earlier, everything looked normal. My name is Sarah Mitchell. I'm 34 years old, a school counselor in Columbus, Ohio. My daughter Lily is 9, and if you met her, the first thing you'd notice is how excited she gets about holidays. Birthdays, Christmas, Halloween. But Thanksgiving? That's her favorite. Not because of the turkey. Not even because of the pie. Because she loves the idea of everyone sitting together, talking, laughing, being a family. All week she had been preparing for it. She made little handmade place cards for everyone at the table. My mom, my dad, my brother Jason, and his wife Amanda. Even the extra chair for my dad's neighbor Mrs. Brooks, who sometimes stopped by for dessert. Each card had a tiny drawing on it. A turkey with a pilgrim hat. A pumpkin. Colorful leaves. She was so proud of them. Grandma's going to love these, she told me in the car on the way over. I smiled and nodded. But if I'm being honest, I was already a little nervous about the evening. My parents, Diane and Robert Mitchell, have always cared a lot about appearances. The perfect dinner. The perfect table. The perfect holiday photo. And kids, well, kids don't always fit into that picture. Lily had never done anything terrible around them. She wasn't wild or disrespectful. But she was 9. Which meant sometimes she laughed too loudly. Sometimes she dropped things. Sometimes she asked too many questions. Normal kid stuff. Still, every holiday there were these little comments from my mom. Sarah, maybe Lily shouldn't wear that sweater. Sarah, maybe Lily should sit a little quieter. Sarah, could you make sure she doesn't touch the serving dishes? Small things. Tiny criticisms. The kind you ignore because it's easier than starting a family argument. Have you ever done that? Ignored a small red flag just to keep the peace? Yeah, that was me. When we arrived that afternoon, the house smelled amazing. Turkey roasting. Cinnamon candles burning. Football playing quietly on the TV. Lily ran straight to the dining room table. Mom, look. She had spotted the centerpiece my mom made every year. A big bowl of gourds and fall leaves. Lily carefully placed each handmade name card in front of the chairs. Grandpa Robert, Grandma Diane, Uncle Jason, Aunt Amanda, and finally, Lily Mitchell. She beamed. Now everyone knows where to sit. Dinner started about an hour later. The table was full. Turkey, stuffing, mashed potatoes, green beans, cranberry sauce. Everyone talking. Everyone passing dishes around. For about 15 minutes, everything was fine. Then it happened. Lily reached for the cranberry sauce. Her elbow bumped the bowl slightly. Just enough for a small red streak to slide onto the tablecloth. Not a disaster. Not even a big spill. Something you wipe up in 5 seconds. But my mother froze. Her face tightened. Oh, for heaven's sake, she said. The room got quiet. Lily immediately grabbed a napkin. I'm sorry, Grandma. But my mom wasn't satisfied. This is exactly why children shouldn't sit at the main table, she said sharply. My brother Jason shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Mom, it's just cranberry sauce. But she cut him off. No, the table is already crowded. Then she pointed toward the hallway. Lily can finish her dinner in the garage. For a moment, nobody moved. Not me. Not my dad. Not Jason. Not even Amanda. Because we were all trying to process what she had just said. Lily looked up slowly. Her eyes moved from my mom to me. And in the quietest voice imaginable, she asked a question that still echoes in my head. Did I do something wrong? I felt something twist in my chest. But before I could speak, my mother had already stood up. I'll take her plate. And just like that, my 9-year-old daughter was sent out to eat Thanksgiving dinner alone in the cold garage. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. Instead, I stood up quietly, walked toward the back door, and followed Lily outside. Because the moment I saw where she was about to sit, I knew exactly what I was going to do next. And a few minutes later, standing in the cold driveway with my phone in my hand, I made a call that would change everything by morning. What kind of grandparent sends a 9-year-old to eat Thanksgiving dinner in a garage? I want you to picture that for a moment. Not a cozy little corner. Not a quiet kids' table somewhere else in the house. A garage. Concrete floor. Cold air creeping in under the door. A folding chair next to dusty storage boxes and a rusted lawn mower. That's where my daughter Lily was walking with her plate of turkey and mashed potatoes. And she was trying very hard not to cry. I followed her outside, pushing open the heavy door that led from the kitchen to the garage. The temperature dropped instantly. Inside the house it was warm and loud with conversation. Out here, it felt like a completely different world. The overhead light flickered on when we stepped in. Lily looked around, unsure where she was supposed to sit. There was an old metal folding chair near a workbench. My mother had already placed Lily's plate on the bench like it was some kind of cafeteria tray. I watched my daughter climb onto the chair slowly. Her feet didn't even reach the floor. She picked up her fork. Then she looked at me again. That same quiet voice. Mom, did I ruin Thanksgiving? If you're a parent, you already know what that question does to your heart. I knelt beside her immediately. No, sweetheart, I said softly. You didn't ruin anything. But Grandma looked really mad. I took a breath. Inside the house, I could hear my brother laughing at something on the football game. Someone clinked a glass. The normal Thanksgiving sounds continued like nothing had happened. Meanwhile, my 9-year-old daughter was eating dinner next to a toolbox. That's when something inside me shifted. Not anger. Not yet. Clarity. I helped Lily adjust the napkin on her lap. You go ahead and eat, I told her gently. I'm going to step outside for a minute, okay? She nodded. Kids are surprisingly good at sensing when adults are trying to stay calm. I walked past the car parked in the garage and stepped out into the driveway. The November air was cold enough to sting a little. I pulled out my phone. And for a second, I just stared at the screen. Because I knew what I was about to do would change the rest of the night. Maybe even more than that. Let me ask you something. When family crosses a line, how far are you willing to go to protect your child? Do you keep the peace? Do you stay quiet? Or do you draw a boundary that people can't ignore? I scrolled through my contacts and tapped a number I knew by memory. It rang twice. Then a calm voice answered. Franklin County Child Services. How can I help you? I took a slow breath. My name is Sarah Mitchell, I said. I need to report something that just happened. There was a pause. Okay, Ms. Mitchell. What's going on? I looked back toward the garage. Through the small window in the door, I could see Lily sitting on the folding chair, carefully cutting a piece of turkey. I'm at my parents' house for Thanksgiving, I said. And they just made my 9-year-old daughter eat dinner alone in their garage. The woman on the line didn't interrupt. She just listened. So I kept talking. I explained everything. The dinner table. The small spill. The way my mother reacted. The way Lily was sent outside like she had done something terrible. Is the child safe right now? The woman asked. Yes, I said. She's with me. Was she threatened or physically harmed? No. Another pause. Then the woman said something that made me realize I had done the right thing. Emotional humiliation and isolation can still be considered concerning behavior, she explained calmly. Especially toward a minor child. I nodded even though she couldn't see me. I work in a school, I added. I know how damaging situations like this can be. She asked a few more questions. Names. Address. Who else was present? I answered all of them. When the call ended, the driveway was quiet again. Inside the house, the sound of dishes clinking floated through the walls. Thanksgiving was continuing like nothing had happened. I walked back into the garage. Lily had eaten about half her dinner. She looked up. "Are we going home?" "Not yet," I said softly. I pulled another chair over and sat beside her. We finished the meal together in that cold garage. Eventually, we went back inside. And here's the strange part. No one mentioned it. Not my dad. Not my brother. Not even my mom. Dinner continued. Pie was served. Football played. Conversations drifted from work to politics to holiday plans. It was like the garage incident had been erased from the room. But I knew something they didn't. Because earlier that night, I had already set something in motion. And the next morning, when my dad picked up his phone and opened his email, he would see a message that made the entire house fall completely silent. Have you ever done something in a calm moment, knowing the real impact wouldn't hit until later? That was exactly how the rest of Thanksgiving night felt. Quiet. Almost too quiet. Because while everyone else believed the evening had simply moved on, I knew something had already been set in motion. And by morning, the calm pretending inside that house was about to crack wide open. After Lily and I finished eating in the garage, we went back inside. The warmth hit us immediately. The smell of pumpkin pie filled the kitchen. My brother Jason was pouring coffee. Amanda was rinsing dishes in the sink. And my parents? They were acting like nothing had happened. My mom, Diane, was slicing pie like she had just hosted the perfect holiday dinner. "Who wants whipped cream?" she asked casually. No one mentioned Lily's dinner in the garage. Not a word. That silence told me everything. Have you ever noticed how families sometimes treat uncomfortable moments? They don't talk about them. They just pretend they never happened. Jason started a conversation about a football game. My dad, Robert, nodded along, scrolling through sports scores on his phone. Lily sat quietly beside me at the kitchen counter, slowly eating a small piece of pumpkin pie. She wasn't laughing like she usually did on holidays. She was careful now. Extra careful. Like someone who had just learned they could be punished without warning. And that broke my heart more than the garage itself. Around 8:30 that night, people started leaving the table. Jason grabbed his coat. "Same time next year," he joked. My mom laughed lightly. "Hopefully with less cranberry sauce disasters." She said it like a harmless joke. But Lily heard it. I felt her shift slightly beside me. I placed my hand gently on her shoulder. We left about 10 minutes later. The drive home was quiet. Streetlights passed over the windshield one by one. Lily sat in the back seat hugging the little paper turkey she had made for the table. "Mom," she said after a while. "Yeah, Grandma was really mad at me." I kept my eyes on the road. "No," I said carefully. "Grandma made a bad decision. She thought about that. Am I allowed to sit at Thanksgiving next year?" That question hit harder than anything else that night. "Yes," I said firmly. "You are always allowed to sit at the table." We got home around 9:15. I helped Lily brush her teeth, tucked her into bed, and turned on the small nightlight she liked. Before I turned off the lamp, she asked one more thing. "Mom, are you mad at Grandma?" I paused. Then I answered honestly. "I'm not mad," I said. "But I'm not going to let anyone treat you like that again." She nodded sleepily and closed her eyes. Within minutes, she was asleep. But I wasn't. I sat at the kitchen table for almost an hour, just thinking. About families. About boundaries. About how many times people excuse bad behavior just because the person doing it is a relative. You know what I mean, right? How many times have you heard someone say, "That's just how they are. Don't make a big deal out of it. Let it go." But when it comes to your child, letting it go isn't always an option. Around midnight, my phone buzzed. A message. It was from the same child services intake line I had spoken to earlier. It confirmed that a report had been logged, and that someone would follow up. I set the phone down and finally went to bed. The next morning, everything looked normal on the surface. At least at my parents' house. My mom woke up early like she always did. Coffee brewing. Morning news playing softly in the living room. My dad sat at the dining table scrolling through emails on his phone. Just another Friday morning after Thanksgiving. Or at least, that's what they thought. Then my dad stopped scrolling. His thumb froze on the screen. His eyebrows pulled together. "What's this?" he muttered. My mom barely looked up from her coffee. "What?" He kept reading. Then he sat up straighter in his chair. "This email, it's from Franklin County Child Services." That got her attention. She looked up immediately. "Why would they be emailing you?" He read the subject line again slowly. "Notice of complaint regarding treatment of a minor child." The room went completely quiet. My mom's coffee cup stopped halfway to her mouth. "What?" My dad kept reading. Every word made his face change a little more. Confusion. Then realization. Then something closer to shock. Finally, he looked up. And the first words out of his mouth were, "Karen Lopez from Child Services wants to schedule a visit about what happened yesterday." My mom blinked rapidly. "What are you talking about?" My dad slowly turned his phone so she could see the screen. And that's when the entire house went silent. Because suddenly, they realized someone had reported Thanksgiving dinner. And there was only one person in the world who could have made that call. Have you ever watched someone's carefully controlled world collapse before their eyes? That's exactly what happened at my parents' house that morning. The room was quiet, but you could feel the tension in the air. Thick, heavy, impossible to ignore. My dad, Robert, still holding his phone, was frozen. My mom, Diane, looked like she'd seen a ghost. My brother Jason had stopped halfway to the kitchen, coffee in hand. Even Amanda looked uneasy, shifting from one foot to the other. I stood silently in the doorway, my arms crossed, watching it all unfold. I didn't need to say a word. The truth had already begun doing its work. Officer Karen Lopez, the county social worker, arrived shortly after the phone call. She was calm, professional, but her presence carried weight. I had given her all the information the night before, but now it was real, in front of everyone. She didn't have to raise her voice. Just her clipboard and quiet observation were enough to make everyone shift uncomfortably in their seats. She began by speaking to Lily, gently, kneeling to meet her at eye level. "Hi, Lily. I heard about your Thanksgiving dinner. Can you tell me what happened?" Lily's little voice trembled, but she spoke honestly. "I spilled some cranberry sauce," she said, "and Grandma made me eat in the garage." She paused. "I didn't know what I did wrong." Her words cut through the room like a knife. My mother's face went pale. My father swallowed hard. Jason's eyes darted between Lily and Mom, realizing just how serious this was. I let Lily continue, nodding slightly with encouragement. I ate on a folding chair. It was cold, but Mom stayed with me. She said it wasn't my fault. Karen Lopez took notes silently, her pen scratching quietly against the paper. Then she asked the family questions. Diane and Robert tried to downplay it at first. "It wasn't that bad," Diane said nervously. "She's fine." Karen looked directly at them, her voice calm but firm. "The concern here is emotional neglect and humiliation. Isolating a child, even temporarily, can be very damaging." I watched my mother's lips tremble. My father's hands shook as he held his coffee mug. Jason opened his mouth to say something but closed it again. Then Karen asked if anyone else had witnessed the incident. That's when Mrs. Eleanor Brooks, our neighbor, stepped forward. She was in the next yard over that evening and had seen Lily sitting in the garage through the window. "It looked like she was alone and upset," she said gently. I thought it was strange. That statement broke whatever invisible control Diane and Robert had tried to maintain. Suddenly, the incident wasn't just a private family matter. Someone else had seen it. Someone outside the house. And now it had official scrutiny. Karen Lopez nodded and folded her notes. "I think we have everything we need. A formal report will be filed, and you will receive guidance on appropriate steps for family counseling." My mother's face went completely white. My father's jaw tightened. My brother Jason's mouth hung open slightly. Amanda simply exhaled, realizing the seriousness of what had happened. I finally spoke softly. "This wasn't about punishment," I said. "It was about dignity. And protecting my daughter." Karen smiled briefly at me, acknowledging the calm courage in my stance. Then she turned toward my parents. These incidents are serious. They are documented, and repeated behavior of this kind could have long-term consequences for the child. The room was silent. You could hear the air conditioner humming in the background. It was the kind of silence that feels heavier than shouting, heavier than yelling. And in that silence, something shifted. A new boundary had been established. My daughter's well-being was no longer negotiable. My parents couldn't just ignore it. They couldn't just pretend it didn't happen. Jason finally muttered, I think we all underestimated how serious this was. Diane tried to speak, but the words faltered. I didn't mean. Karen shook her head slightly. Intent doesn't erase impact. The family sat there, stunned, as the weight of accountability settled over the room. And all along, I stayed calm, watching. Because the truth, once laid out in plain sight, is louder than any argument and far more effective than anger. That morning, my daughter Lily had a quiet, victorious smile. She didn't need to shout or cry to be heard. She had been seen. Her dignity had been defended. And my parents finally understood the consequences of their actions. But even in the quiet, I knew this wasn't just about one Thanksgiving. It was about the way our family would function from this point forward. About respect. About boundaries. About protecting the ones who can't always protect themselves. Have you ever felt a moment so quiet, yet so powerful, that it changes everything? That's what the morning after Thanksgiving felt like in our house. The day started like any other Saturday. Sunlight spilling through the windows. Coffee brewing in the kitchen. But inside, everything had shifted. My parents, Diane and Robert, were no longer acting like the adults in control of the holiday. Their confidence had evaporated. The same people who had sent my 9-year-old daughter to eat alone in the garage were now cautious, careful, almost afraid of what their next move might trigger. I walked into the kitchen, Lily holding her little paper turkey in her hands. She looked up at me, smiling softly. She had no idea that the events of last night had already set in motion something that would protect her for years to come. We didn't speak much at first. Lily quietly ate a small breakfast, humming to herself. I sipped my coffee, my mind replaying the events of the past 24 hours. How quickly a single action, standing up for your child, making one phone call, can unravel old patterns of control and abuse. It didn't take long before the phone buzzed again. It was an email from Karen Lopez at Child Services confirming the formal report had been filed. She had scheduled a follow-up visit and outlined the steps our family needed to take. Counseling for my parents, guidance for me on supporting Lily, and oversight for any future family events where a child could be at risk. I read the email carefully, then put the phone down. That's when my dad, Robert, opened his own device. He froze. The silence in the room was immediate. No one spoke. No one moved. The weight of what he saw, a formal report with their names, outlining the emotional neglect of a child, was almost unbearable. Diane clutched her coffee cup, her hands trembling. He didn't shout. He didn't curse. He just turned slowly to look at me. You called them, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Yes, I replied calmly. I did. That was all it took. The room was heavy with realization. My parents could no longer dismiss their actions as trivial or a misunderstanding. The consequences were real, tangible, and immediate. The week that followed was a blur. Karen Lopez visited our home, spoke with Lily, and confirmed the details. Mrs. Brooks, the neighbor, provided her statement. Each layer of testimony reinforced the same truth. Lily had been humiliated, isolated, and emotionally neglected, even if unintentionally. Counseling sessions began for my parents. Diane cried in the first session, finally confronting how her need for control had hurt the people she supposedly loved most. Robert admitted he had enabled the behavior by staying silent. And I, while proud of my daughter and my own composure, had to navigate the awkward tension that comes from holding family members accountable. But the most important outcome? Lily's dignity was restored. The next holiday gathering, she sat at the main table, without hesitation. My parents no longer dared to belittle her in front of others. And I made sure she knew she was always allowed at the table, in the home, and in our hearts. The experience taught me something profound. Family loyalty is important, yes, but protecting a child is paramount. Standing up for them may make you appear harsh or even villainous in the eyes of relatives. But the truth, the safety, dignity, and emotional well-being of a child is never negotiable. Looking back now, I realize that one calm decision, one phone call, and one clear boundary changed everything. The event that could have crushed Lily's sense of worth instead became a defining moment of protection, courage, and resilience. And sometimes that's all it takes. One decision, one action, one person refusing to stay silent. So, I leave you with this question. If it were your child, if they were humiliated and ignored, would you step in? Would you stay silent? Or would you make the call that no one else expected? Because protecting your child doesn't always feel easy. It doesn't always feel comfortable. But it is always the right thing to do.